Hello, everyone, and welcome to the Deep Blue Renegade podcast. My name is Molly, also known as the Deep Blue Renegade, and I'd like to welcome you guys to episode 322. Today is Saturday, June 20th, 2020, and I'm glad you could join me today. It is a foggy, dull day here. We are in the midst of the June gloom, so I don't believe that we will be seeing the sun on the longest day. But, oh well, whatever. As you do. And I will need to go to the grocery store later, so boo. Excuse me. Definitely, I really could be. It's probably allergies. Almost definitely, whatever. It was like, unfortunately, or what would it be? I definitely had allergies in Dallas, which was lame, but it appears that I have not had a beautiful grace period and that I shall have allergies in San Francisco too, so oh well, whatever. Or maybe I pulled out the sweater from my wardrobe and now I'm sneezing because of dust. Who knows? So many options. So, what would it be? I have to laugh a little bit because my husband had the day off work yesterday, so I took the day off too. And for it being an effective weekend day, like, did not, what would it be, get a lot accomplished on the knitting front, so, oh well, whatever, such is life. So, as you do, I'm not going to be too worried about it. So this week was a week with mostly focus on my Sizzle Pop shawl. So this is a Leslie Ann Robinson pattern brioche lace that I am knitting with Smuzzerella yarns in the You Can Never Keep Me Down, Never Enough Socks. I don't know. Wonder if this foggy light can show off the purple, whatever. It's definitely a very aubergine, eggplanty sort of purple. So, I guess, whatever. I can just finish in any of this row. I did not do extensive podcast preparations before beginning the podcast. It was more like, I need to get some stuff done today, so I should just do this today. So, because what would it be? It'd be the case where sometimes I will delay podcasting because I would like to finish something, and the weekend is the most time I have to work on stuff. But there is no reason to delay if there is no hope of finishing anything. And what would it be? I have, or last I weighed, I have like basically 130 grams of yarn left in this project. I'm using about, oh my goodness, I'm just like, I am using about half a gram per row on this, roughly speaking. And this would be sort of that like half brioche row because you're yarn overing over the stitch you're not knitting, and whatever. You're yarn overing on the stitch you're not working in the pattern, and you are working a pair of stitches on the ones you are. Or whatever. You're basically purling two together and knitting two together, basically over the wrap. It makes it look really cool. Definitely a big fan of brioche. And I guess that this does make sense because what would it be? I'm knitting with lace weight, so it's going to take a lot more knitting effort in order to get through that, because the yards per pound is huge. But it was like a little bit demoralizing. So I knit with my variegated and I knit with my purple, and I weighed my ball again, and it was like, ooh, I did not use a lot of yarn in that pass. So, oh well, such is life. So I am pretty solidly still in the 2/3 of the way to go, except it won't be that case, as you do. But I was able to basically work another half repeat just this week, which is good. And I figure I'll just keep adding up those half repeats until we're good to go. So, and it isn't like it would be good if I brioche correctly while talking to you guys. So maybe I'll have to figure out what a half repeat adds up to in terms of like length of shawl as I go. Whatever, it shouldn't be too hard to measure, so that I just get a rough idea about what I'm going to be creating and that sort of thing. So I don't know what I'll do with the extras from this, because it's going to be fairly substantial extras, so oh well. Like, I probably could have knit the rectangular version of this instead of the whatever diagonal triangle version of this, but oh well, not too crazy. That would have been even more schlumped up on the needles, so so far so good. This was what I ended up putting a lot of time on this week. I think more so just because it is like more engaging knitting. So it's sort of like I need to have a plan for my other project. Like I need to have like on point entertainment in order to make progress on that, which I did because I ended up watching the anime Wolf's Rain last weekend in order to work on it. I didn't mention what it was I was watching, so it was sort of the case, and because of something to do with the file, I ended up watching it dubbed instead of subtitled, so that made things a little bit easier. So I guess the nice thing about subtitled is at the very least you actually know what the names of the characters are, because what was it? One of the characters in it is like Hub and Char, and Hub is the ex-husband of Char, so it definitely seemed like they were using like a term of endearment. It was a little confusing, but really that was just his name. So not too crazy. But like with this project, this is one that I'll pick up when I'm doing like a virtual knit night or something like that. Because it is a good mix of exciting and boring, and I can totally handle doing the exciting row. So this is where we are repeat-wise. I believe that should end up being 15 or 16 repeats at this point. I think I get 2 leaves per complete repeat. And then where did I leave this off? Or is it missing? That's weird. Where did my marker go? I'm like missing everything. It's really confusing. Well, Yeah, no, so I'm about to embark on the annoying row of the shawl, which is where I have the complicated 5-stitch decrease that makes a very lovely point where the leaves come together. That I end up using a locking stitch marker in order to implement, but that's so weird. I'll just have to put a new progress keeper on this one and call it good. So I had like a nice light one because this is not, it's not a substantial shawl. It is getting substantial in length, so at this point it's a little bit stretched as I hold it at wingspan, and that isn't changing particularly fast at this point, so not too crazy. And I ended up taking this with me on an adventure yesterday, so we ended up going for a socially distanced hike with one of my husband's friends he's met through the fish hobby. So we ended up driving to a lake and then hiking to the sand dunes, which are really super close by, and then sort of hiking around the sand dunes in the area and then heading back. It was the first time that I'd gone above 10,000 steps since we moved out of Dallas in March. It's been a long time, guys. I think we both slept really good last night, so A+ there. And what's cool is that, what would it be? It was very foggy yesterday too, but I was pretty sure that I could see the Twin Peaks, and that's where I know that, like, whatever, our house is on the side of Twin Peaks, so what is it? And I'm pretty sure that if I can see my house, like, whatever, my neighborhood from that place, I'm pretty sure that I was seeing that area of sand dunes is actually where I can see in the gap in the tree. So, not too crazy. Like, the area is named after some general who fought in the Philippines War and is beloved in San Francisco due to his, what would it be, coordination of disaster response after the 1906 earthquake. So, like Fort Benson, whatever. It's been decommissioned and now it's a park. So that was cool. It was, or would it be, as someone who grew up on the sand dunes of Lake Michigan, it was cool to know that there were sand dunes here too. So, not too crazy. But this was the project that I was carrying around with me because it is less yarn. So, my husband's fishy friend was impressed that I could knit and rock at the same time. So, now I'm figuring out how to detangle this bad boy, which I think starts here. And oh yeah, no, this is off the, crap. Things have slipped. So, I shall take a moment and fix this on screen, whatever. So this is the Mesa sweater wrap, which for this being a non-superwash yarn, definitely doesn't have the sticky goodness of, I guess, of one spun. So when this pops off the needles, it runs like a bad pair of nylons. And there really isn't too much reason why. I don't even know what I'm saying here. So, I'll have to get this back on and then I'll have to do damage control after that. So, this is the Mesa sweater wrap. It is a Romy Hill pattern that I am knitting with my Geneva fleece, which is a Corriedale cross BFL cross Shetland that I processed, dyed, and spun specifically for some sort of sweater. And this is the one that I selected. Oh my goodness, I'm so sniffly today. So, it's been coming along. I don't think I've gotten a ton of progress on it this week, or since I last podcast. Just probably a little bit of knitting during a meeting or something like that. So, there are some places where it double ran. That's super. So this is mostly a rectangle with a little bit of increases in it, and it's super hard to show you guys the color changes just because it is fairly subtle. So I started this with purple, purple, blue. I then began to incorporate both of purple, blue, blue, purple, and purple, purple, blue in a section. Where it gets darker is where I ran out of purple, purple, blue, and then started to have ridges of blue, blue, blue instead. And I just incorporated teal, blue, blue, as you do. And then every time I wrap something up, I'm stabbing it on the end so I don't have to cut until the very end. But, so this one is blue, blue, purple, and this one is purple, purple, blue. But there is a lot of teal in the purple color, and that's what's coming through on the screen. And then if I show the wrong side, so this is, effectively speaking, fairly reversible, you might be able to better see sort of what the background colors are, maybe. Or not. You like have to have like a black. I think I have to have like something black to show to show through, because the white just ends up washing it out. So not too crazy. So I have been, I don't think I've done a lot of knitting on it this week. Oh, I guess I've done some. So last time I had about 2 rows of teal in it. This time I am 6 rows further. So you can see the little marker there. So I have done a little bit of progress, but not nearly as much as last week. Like last week I got like 4 inches done. And now I'm gonna have to remount the stitches and do all of that other stuff. Oh well, such is life. So I'll show my current colors. So this one is blue, blue, blue. It is very dark. This one is blue, blue, teal. And it is less dark, just by a smidge. I'm gonna be sort of heading into lighter colors as I go. So you can totally see these colors are mostly true, except the blue, blue, blue is fairly purpley. Oh well. So it may be the case where I figure out some way of doing another watch-a-thon to get another good burn on it, or I decide to focus a lot of effort on my other shawl. I don't know. Life's a mystery sometimes. So I am not going to fix that on screen because my one's fairly big. It's annoying when that happens. Come on, focus. I don't know why my webcam's having a rough time focusing today. Oh well. So almost, or would it be? So I finally had a chance to begin preparing for Tour de Fleece, which is cool. So I'm going to first talk about my spinning whip, which wasn't close to being done this weekend. Who knows, maybe some dedicated effort would have gotten it closer, but... And then, I'll talk about my Tour de Fleece plans, which will sort of cover what I'm planning on working on next. So, I can't really recall where I ended up leaving off on this project, so I'll just show you two things and we'll go on our merry way. So this is about 2 ounces of singles from my first bat. So this was a bat that I ended up making at Yarn School 2018. And I think that this was the second bat that I ended up making because we ran out of blue. I was competing for, I don't know, maybe I ended up showing you the singles for this guy. So there was a table of bat fixings and you could grab what you want and make what you want. And so I ended up putting together this guy. I'm just bringing it super duper close and hope it focuses. There we go. Maybe we'll bring it back a little bit to get the colors better. Maybe. I don't know. So this is actually coming up on screen as blue, but it is actually purple. But I had a lot of extras in this one, so I had reds and yellows and oranges, and you can see the band of white in here. And then like a little bit of teal in there too. I'm pretty sure this was the second bat I made because I'd run out of stuff. And there is a gray Shetland in here as well, because someone had decided they didn't want the ounce of gray Shetland and put it on the bat fixing table. So I did make another bat, which I ended up doing, and you can see that bright orange glob in there. So what I ended up doing was it was mostly blue with a little bit of purple, a little bit of orange, and then rainbow sparkle, because that was on the bat table. The other one also had a decent amount of rainbow sparkle as well. So I just put in like a little bit of color opposite of it on the color wheel. And there's also some gray Shetland base in here as well. But overall blue, overall fairly happy with how it's displaying. There is purple in here, but I can't show you purple on the podcast. And, oh wait, I was gonna be so clever and be able to tip in, but there we go. So, tip in the spinning wheel. So, what we have here is my blue single, so it has a little bit less color than the first bat did, but still a pretty decent amount. So it's blue with some shots of purple and orange in it, which is cool, and rainbow sparkle. So I am pretty far along on this spin, but I don't think I was going to finish all of this before, well, you can see some of the gray too. The gray maybe makes it possible to actually see the purple. So this is fun, but I haven't been working a ton on it. I don't know, for some reason the mojo hasn't been super duper high for the spinning this week. I do want to finish before Tour de Fleece so that I can start my Tour de Fleece projects. So maybe I'll be able to, and it seems like it's probably going to end at about the right time. So on Saturday, it sounds like there's going to be a big spin-in, and with the group that I'm participating with, which is the Fun Onion group. And so they have they come up with all sorts of fun challenges, and so it's been a little bit of trying to match the plans of the things I was going to do anyways with the rules for the competition. Now, to be honest, there's no way I'm going to be spinning the amount of fiber I have set aside during like that 3-week period. Ooh, a hawk. That's the cool thing about living on the hill. It was like interesting birds. So, whatever. But that is probably gonna set the tone for the spinning for a while, so that's fine. The first item is my last item in the spin the bin. So the bat spinning that I just showed you was a part of my quest to spin up all of my unlisted fiber and turn it into yarn so that I had more space on the yarn shelf to actually fit my yarn. As you do. This other stuff would be it'd be the case where I have 2 big projects planned for next. The first of which, losing fiber. First of which is, so I scored, this is not going to show up very well, is it? This Nest Maiden's Wish. It's a colorway from the Mega Sale, which happened in 2015. So 5 years later, 5 years after this was dyed, I'm finally spinning it. I scored this on D-Stash last year. This was like, excuse me, I did participate in the Mega Sale. I bought 1 braid of fiber and spun it during the Mega Sale, and that was perfectly reasonable. Excuse me. But I totally missed the update for this one. I probably would have bought this one, but what would it be? Most of my nest has been either acquired by D-Stash or by being in the club, so I don't think I've ever actually hit like a regular update. And you can totally hit an update, it's not like it's that crazy. But this one did end up going fast, so this is a BFL Silk. I got on a D-Stash, and I put it in my bin this year because I managed to put together a bin of all the fiber that I had on hand during my exile. Exile's over, I'm spinning other things now, but this is the last 8 ounces, so this sort of counts as 4 months for my spin the bin. I'm probably spinning faster than that at this point, but eh. So, and I just left this guy whole. So I'd concluded that I wanted this one to be sort of the long color piece in the yarn I'm planning on making. And then this one sort of has a bit warmer of a green. Sorry, I have this in my dyeing pot to make it easier to be contained, but I ended up taking the other braid that I had and splitting it into 4. So I had about 110 grams of this and 120 some grams of the other one. So I'm going to start this spin as a 2-pattern fractal where I have 1 by 4. And once I have the singles done, I'll do a little sample and figure out if I want to ply it as a 2-ply or if I want to do a 2x3 cable. So because this was a very popular colorway and because it initially came, it's 5 years old, there's a lot of examples of how people spun it. And so I was able to sort of look through the pictures of various people who spun it and decide what sort of yarn I wanted to make. And someone had a sample of this 2x3 cable and it was gorgeous. It was that perfect compromise between having the colors be mixed together and having sort of one color be dominant. So we'll see. I'm willing to sample and figure out where it ends up going from there. And that is going to be, and I think this ends up so as long as I know before I start applying good and proper that I'm only going to, or whatever, I'm only going to do a little bit, then I can ply appropriately to ply further if that's the case. So if I decide I just want a 2-ply, I'll put in a different amount of twists than if I decide I want to do a direct cable, because every step you do takes some twist out. So you'll want to make sure I have extra twist if I'm going to be doing it some more. So there's that. That's going to be the first thing that I end up doing, and I'm betting it could take the whole time to do, but such is life. So that is item number 1. Item number 2, and whatever, that's 8 ounces of fiber. So 8 ounces of fiber in 3 weeks, that sounds pretty reasonable. I'm planning on spending out of my will. Okay. So another thing that I have prepped up, so it's sort of the case where the nest was, or whatever, the Maiden's Wish nest VFL silk was on my list of things to spin, was going to be the next thing that I broke into after I got done with my sample purge, which is nearly done. The next thing was that, where to be, I bought a Jen Steingas pattern. It is called the Hinterland. It is a fingering weight colorwork yoke with these lovely trees. And I got this Three Waters Farm in blue. definitely a Molly blue going on there. In Finn as the main color. And I have these bags here, which is nests that I received as a prize at some point for participating in one of the spin-alongs in 6 different colors. So this was semi-solid nestlets, about an ounce a piece, roughly speaking. And I'm planning on making a yarn like spin cycle with it. So, well, this ends up giving you, I think, a pretty decent idea of what the color palette is going to end up being. So, this is made up of sort of like a yellow, a red, pink, purple, a very orangey red, and white. Yeah. And so what I ended up doing was I took each ounce, split it into thirds, hamburger style, and then I split it up hot dog style into, this bag is my 8 to 9 pieces bag. I was trying to be fairly random, and this ends up sort of maybe giving you a better idea of the random thing that I'm trying to create. And all of these colors have good contrast with blue. In terms of their set, what would it be? In terms of their value, maybe not super, but definitely in terms of color for sure. And this white, I think, is going to be what pumps up the value differences, basically. So, the white appears to be merino, I don't think it's superwash merino, but it's definitely merino. And then the other ones are not merino, but all do seem fairly similar to each other. So these are all semi-solid colorways I split into pieces. And I split into thirds because I'm intending to make a 3-ply fingering. And I'm planning on just pulling from the bags at random. So this one I split into thirds, and this one I split into quarters. So I should have these colors randomly landing on top of each other and creating a fractally sort of barber pole yarn. And it should sort of mix things up. So I'm going to have places that are orange, places that are red, and then bright pops of sort of that purple, yellow, and white in there. So overall, it's sort of centered around red, but then what would it be? Color wheel-wise, it's sort of centered around red, but then it has warmer and cooler tones in there. So should be cool. Some people were a little confused, I think, because of the white and the yellow in there, but part of the fun of the Spin Cycle yarns is that they do have those bright pops in there. So that is what I was trying to go for. So I have these each in their little plastic grocery bag, and I'm planning on just pulling them out at random and making what should be a pretty marled yarn. So should be fun. If it's anything, basically I'm sort of using a combo spin technique in order to make that happen. And the yarn, probably the way Spin Cycle is actually made is like longer color repeats of dyed-in-the-wool sorts of stuff. So that's why I haven't bought any, even though it is really gorgeous, because I know it's something that's well within my wheelhouse as a spinner. So that's what I'm going to do. So hopefully that's going to end up making like a really nice contrast color and should be fun to spin anyways. So it was the case where as soon as I got the yarn, like I knew I wanted it to be like a colorwork yoke, and then after seeing like the hinterland and how it has that slowly changing yoke in it already, that was definitely another thing to be like, yeah, no, what I want for that sweater is hand spun. I don't know what it originally called for, whatever, but as you do. So that's 14 ounces of fiber, and then I have 12 more if I make it to spin this. So that's a lot of yarn. A lot of fiber. But I'm just like sloshing my coffee around. But if I get through all of that, then that sort of tamps back my fiber stash to a point where everything is fitting nicely, and that would make me feel good. It's a little bit irritating because there's like a fruit fly flying around here. So, and then because it is the Fun Onion group, there are themes for the different spin-alongs. So one of the things is about doing something inspired by a country you have no heritage in. And so this BFL is going to be representing Great Britain because the colorway is dyed based on books by Terry Pratchett, who's a British author. So I figure there's Great Britain. Another one of the spins, or another one of the themes was to do something based upon your heritage. So as soon as the theme was announced, I knew I wanted to use this fiber because it comes in the color of tulips. So I am Dutch. My family had a tulip farm in Michigan. So I'm creating a tulip spin for that. Another one of the themes was taking things that don't seem to go together and combine them. And so that fits within, or would it be, I think that one was called like, whatever. There's like heritage, there is the, what would it be, the united, and then there is, I don't know, can't remember the exact theme names. It was sort of the case where whenever I go and do something, it'd be the case. So you're supposed to take things that don't seem like they go together and combine them. So that yellow and white doesn't seem to go with the other one, so I'm going with that. And there are maybe like one or two more challenges to go along with that. I'm not sure whether or not I can force my spinning plans into all of them, but it shouldn't be too crazy. So, but it's just fun to participate in the group. They have a lot of, or they put together a lot of interesting and fun challenges. And it's getting me to do something which I've been intending to do for a while, which is finish my bin and spin the, what would it be? And spin the spin cycle style yarn. So, oh, another one was like just indie dyer. So I think I made my blue count for the indie dyer one because that was a recent purchase. Before I realized that the stash was not contained on the shelf. So, not too crazy, but as you do. So, in terms of what's coming up, what would it be? I'm hoping to get, spend a little bit of time organizing the knitting room and getting some of the things that are in boxes into like drawers and stuff like that. So that should be good. Maybe figuring out a better home for my yoga stuff than there. And what my computer's sitting on right now is sort of a box of all sorts of random and interesting stuff. So, what would it be? It would be good to sort of get all of that settled and sorted, and so that it's a little bit less cluttered in here, which would be good. Another thing I need to do is to pull the box of shoes out of the closet and get organized there. So I'm pretty sure in the box of shoes is my shoe organizer, and it would be great to have that back. Great. And maybe I'm sort of in a place now where I can actually deal with some of the really, truly random boxes. Because, you know, when you're, like, unpacking stuff and you're just like, I don't know how to deal with this stuff in here. I wish it had never been brought. Well, that's not entirely true, but when you have so much random stuff in one place, it's a little crazy making. And before I forget, because I was looking in the room and then noticed the blue food dye. Basically, immediately after our podcast last week, I did dye my My Little Pony skein. So, the blue I have is actually fairly teal, and if you look at the thing at food coloring, like, it's sort of like a hybrid between, like, the gel and the drop food coloring. So, I ended up taking this and making it more blue. But actually, it's more teal. But I'm fine with that. So what's going on here is that it used to be sort of pink pops with a gray base, and now we have a little bit more complexity going on here. I ended up starting off doing twisting skein, dumping it in the pot, retwisting skein, dumping in the pot, but I ended up changing that because I realized the twisting skein was resulting in some very sharp color transitions, and that wasn't quite what I wanted. So I definitely did a round where I dip dyed one end faster than the other, so one end of this is much more teal and has a lot more color coverage than the other. And this end has still a decent amount of some of that original color, but it definitely has sort of a wash of blue all over. Not that I think you guys could tell where any of the pink was before. I don't know, I guess that's an interesting question about whether or not you could even see the pink last week. So, this is definitely the least dyed end, but you can maybe see here that there are places that are more blue than others, but it's hard to tell. Oh well. I'm sort of curious to just wind it and see what I ended up creating. So it was good fun. So this is definitely much more up my color alley. It is not sort of a pastel-y pink and gray, but definitely much more teal at this point. But it still has some of that subtle color that was in it before that I didn't want to just blast it with dye and have it become solid. There still is some of its original pink, just less of it. Enough that it's more satisfactory to me. So, not too crazy there. So, I can now safely, I don't know, I probably should take a photo of this with it actually being done and actually, or whatever. I'm not sure what the right way to take a photo of it. Maybe I'll make a, because when you twist in a skein it ends up sort of showing maybe more of that. I don't know, can you guys see the light and dark here? You can definitely see that some areas are more pigmented than others, but there still is pink here. Oh well. So, that was a little bit of excitement. I was doing other things at the same time, so it didn't take too much time, but decided to make it my own. This current spin that I'm working on, I probably won't over dye because it's already colors I like, so not too crazy. So not too crazy there. So let's see. I think this week's episode is pretty long, and I think I have covered everything that I would like to cover this week, so that's good. So next week I'll probably end up recording on Sunday just because there will be a giant spin-a-palooza happening that Saturday that I do not want to miss. So that should be fun. But yeah, I know what would it be? There hasn't been too much hanging out with other people, so that was a good step yesterday to finally hang out with someone locally. Always a good way to be. And everyone was wearing masks, so they were being careful. So, not too crazy, but yeah. So, should be able to record next week, but it'll be a little bit later. Alright, so with that, I hope you guys have a lovely week, and I look forward to talking to you guys soon. So, take care, guys. Bye-bye.